Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is Caroline Fourest, who is a journalist and author of several books focusing mostly on the issue of religion and society here in France. Her last book is published in France. I would translate it as The Genie of French Secularism. It's known as Laïcité. It's published by Grasset. You defend in this book France's model. You say it's a good model. It's not a model that is stifling religious freedom. And you spend quite a lot of time and ink on the seeming misunderstanding between France and the United States and other countries like Canada and the UK, maybe on this very issue. There is this notion, maybe in the US, that France is not defending freedom, but actually stifling freedom.
Yes, and more than those misunderstandings, the State Department of the USA is regularly attacking France on not respecting freedom of religion. And you're right, I'm battling with those misunderstandings since years, since the cartoons affair, since the attack against Charlie Hebdo, to explain that the French secularism is really the opposite of an oppression, is really to defend a certain idea of liberty. But with this pretension to preserve common sense and common values like the equality between men and women in public school, for example. But it's quite understandable that we don't have the same vision from USA and France about this process, because you know that USA is built on the fact to protect religious freedom. And in France, the separation between religion and politics is definitely to protect freedom from religion, at least from the religious fundamentalism. So we can say that USA and France are clearly allies when it goes to resist together against totalitarianism. But when we are speaking about a religious fanatism, a religious totalitarianism, sometimes we can have differences.
Yes, because, I mean, obviously the pillar of this separation between church and state, as it's known, is a law passed in 1905 here in France. It was a time when the Catholic Church was obviously very powerful, and it was really a fierce battle, a fierce debate. And some are saying that this law is being used not only against religious freedom, but to put it bluntly, against Islam.
But actually, it was already the case when we did vote this law in the beginning of the 20th century. The New York Times, for example, the same New York Times, who did attack many times Charlie Hebdo, twisted the intention of this anti-racist newspaper, didn't explain correctly the law to ban all religious symbols in public schools. The same New York Times in 1905 said that this law was an oppression law against religion, while it was the opposite. It was a law to protect especially religious minorities from the domination of the Catholic Church and to protect the revolution, with the purpose was to preserve equality between all citizens from the Catholic Royalist Church. So you see, the misunderstanding is very, very old.
Right, but on the issue of Islam, I'm not going to do the chronicle of all the issues from swimming pools to school kitchens to the veil. France really has been rocked by this, and there are clearly some Muslim, a sizable number of Muslims, who feel that they're segregated, discriminated against, and that one of the tools of this segregation is French laïcité.
Yeah. You're right, but you have especially the radical Muslims who are not happy with secularism. And you have many, many Muslims.
Only them?
No, not only them, because the propaganda, the misunderstanding, and this is why it is so important to explain and to write books and to have certain patience to clarify those debates. But the organization who are invited mostly in the media to denounce, especially in USA, to denounce French secularism, are not very, very progressive. They are mostly close to the Muslim Brotherhood and very political, while Muslims from Algeria, for example, who did escape from fanaticism in Algeria to live in a very secularist country like France, are never invited to speak about that. So there is a problem also of who is invited to speak about those issues. So as a result of that, you have some American today or English even friends of mine who think that, for example, veil is forbidden in France in the street, which is not true, absolutely, who think that you cannot practice your faith in France, which is absolutely not true. You can practice your faith.
But there are debates. For instance, you mentioned the veil. The veil is not allowed in
public school only.
Public schools,
when it is free.
But there is a debate, and some prominent politicians have said this should also be done in university when people are over 18 years old. So there is this
a debate you will always find. My book is advocating for not new law to preserve this balance between preserving the public schools where you are supposed to learn citizenship and equality between men and women. And then after, if you're an adult and you want to put a veil with not hiding your identity, you can, of course. And I think you see in the campaign, even the campaign, if it is a hard time today in France between two terrorist attacks with this so big score of the extreme right that we are fearing, all of us. Even in that climate, you will see that many of the major candidates settle on the fact that we don't need so much new law. What we need is to fight, to be very vigilant against fanatics, all kind of fanatics. And I think really this defense of French secularism is definitely what can protect us the more against the worst. And the worst is the temptation of something like Trump. Can we just notice that? Many of my American British friends told me, but there is a lot of Islamophobia in France. Yes, but we didn't elect Trump. And I hope we will avoid to elect Marine Le Pen. Let's see, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we will do it. And then I will be wrong.
But don't you think that this laicitist French-style secularism could be amended? Some are saying there should be a quote-unquote positive secularism. Some are saying more inclusive. But in the book, you say those words count, and those words are hiding intentions that are not so pure, because you could say maybe this law from 1905 needs to be adapted to today's world.
No, actually, the law has been made in the context of resisting to obscurantism and what can be
we're in the same situation
actual than that. For example, who did say the first time we need a positive secularism? Always the same. The Catholic Church, who did fight against this French secularism for centuries now, said we need a positive secularism just to let hear that it is a negative secularism. It is not a negative secularism to separate clearly religion and state. And today, if there is one man who tried to attack that, it is Donald Trump in USA. He's one of the first presidents who clearly say, I want to stop, to separate those two levels, politics and religion. And if there is a preacher, minister of the cult who want to involve in politics, we have to continue to help them with finance, public finance, and not think that they are against the wall of separation that Jefferson was so clear about that. So you see, I think really this secularism is the best protection both against Islamist fanaticism and against the religious rights with xenophobic. And we want a domination clearly of Christianism over all of kind of minorities, or in USA, or in France, or what Mr. Putin is promoting. What Mr. Putin is promoting is clearly a Christian orthodoxy identity. We want to destroy Europe and secularism that he considered to be a sort of beginning of decadence and end of civilization.
Right. You attack several groups or individuals who are so-called fighting against Islamophobia. But don't you agree that some of them at least have a point? But you think most of them don't have a point, but they have an agenda instead.
Be precise about that. I'm writing since 15 years that the racism...
And you've been attacked for this.
Yes, by those groups. That there is a racism against Muslims without no doubt. I am an anti-racist activist. I'm coming from the fight of the minorities against domination, cultural domination. So we all agree that there is still a big problem of racism.
But some are using this
against Muslims. What I disagree with is some specific organization who are claiming to fight Islamophobia, and in fact they are fighting secularists and feminists, trying to doing this confusion with their message and a xenophobic message. This is the one who did attack Charlie Hebdo for years, claiming that Charlie Hebdo was racist, while everybody who was reading Charlie Hebdo know it is absolutely the opposite. So those confusion are clearly dangerous today. So I'm trying just to alert, be precise. If you want to denounce racism, we will be all united by that. We will be all together. If you want to confuse secularism and feminism and the fight of refusing fanaticism with racism, then we will be divided.
Right. You say there's a very stark and maybe frightening choice. In the end, we can choose either between laïcité, French-style secularism, or fascism. Isn't this a bit of an exaggeration?
I'm really worried, of course.
I can see that.
No, yes, I'm really worried of the future of this continent. I'm speaking for Europe, but you see what is going on in USA. It is, some were sure it was not possible. It is possible. You have today a president who is crazy, who is using his identity to oppress all of the other citizens. Between Donald Trump and a new kind of fascism, I think you can say that we will see. We will see. But for sure, is someone who is using democracy to oppress. This is not the exact definition of democracy. In Europe, you have the rise of extreme right, who are clearly coming from this fascist tradition. Of course, they did change their face to win election, they did change some messages, and sometimes they did really evolve. But clearly, hate can be the political message that some were going to choose instead of fraternity and secularism, if we don't have a clear progressist camp who can say, we will protect you against obscurantism, fanatism, but continuing to be faithful to our values. Our values is fraternity.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline Fourest, for your time. And thank you for watching this interview here on France 24. Stay tuned for more news.
People and Profit, presented by Stephen Carroll.
Business news is not about numbers, nor percentages and statistics. Business news is about people and how we live our lives. People and Profit goes beyond numbers to analyze how the global flow of money and profits shape our world. Intelligent and accessible,